Hello, everybody. Welcome to Magical Monday Live Training. Today we are going to be talking about Deity Devotions. Sorry, I am a little bit late. I had some technical difficulties. But I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to start these Magical Monday Live Trainings back up. I already have 2 more, I think, that I scheduled. I have another 1 or 2 coming up. And these trainings usually last like half an hour, 45 minutes. I'm also going to jump on live during the week with some other cool quick tip information lives. But today we are talking about Deity Devotions. So you might have heard about Deity Devotions, right? Like, what is it? It is a devotion to a deity. There are several reasons why you might want to become devoted to a specific deity. I mean, you might have heard about it. You see it all the time. If you're in any of these beginner Wicca and witchcraft groups, there are a lot of people who are like, I don't know who my deity is. How can I find my deity? I want to find my god. I want to find my goddess. I want to find, all of these things. Immediately, give it to me. But Deity Devotion is not, the path is going to differ person to person. I don't feel like it's like a super easy, path. It's not something that, you kind of really want to blow off. So if you are planning to kind of make devotions to a deity, I want you to think about that for a little bit and kind of decide that, because it does take time, it takes a lot of energy, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But let's just start off by why would you want to find a deity to be devoted to? Many people want to have a relationship with a specific deity, whether it's a god or a goddess. It just, number one, it's a thing that we hear about all the time. So when everybody else is talking about how great their deity goddess relationships are, many of us kind of want to try to feel that for ourselves. It is nice to have a relationship with a single goddess or a single god. I'm just going to say goddess because I don't want to say I don't want to say goddess or god like 5,000 times. So I'm just going to refer to goddess, but please realize that I also can mean god. It's up to you. Some people want to work with a single goddess, especially when you're doing spell work, when you're doing any sort of energy work. Many people will do spell work or even sabbats, like call on whatever goddess of, it's the corn holiday. Let me go through my book and find a goddess of the corn that I can say an invocation to or whatever. Some people would rather work specifically with a single goddess, whether it's just spell work, whether it's through the Wheel of the Year. Some people want to to experience that whole thing with their goddess. Another reason you might be looking into deity devotions is you might already be feeling a pull toward a deity, right? You might be getting some signs. You might be reading books. You might just feel inclined, feel a pull to a deity. And some people just kind of want to create that devotional practice. They want to put that attention toward a goddess and feel that attention and feel that there's a security. There's oh my gosh, the word escapes me. But there is when you're in a relationship with a deity, many times, because like I said again, everybody's relationship with deity is going to be very different. Many times there is a comforting feeling when you're working with the same deity. Kind of like, when you come home to your family and you feel that unconditional love and they're going to be there for you because you're there for them. I'm sure there's a word for that I cannot come up with right now, but that's kind of what I mean. There's that. It's a really interesting, a really good, solid relationship. And that's really what it is. Deity devotions, that devotional path with a singular deity, or many people have many deities that they're devoted to. You could be devoted to 3 deities, 5 deities, 1 million deities. It's up to you. But some people just want to create that devotional practice and want to feel like that one-on-one energetic relationship. So before we go further, I kind of want to tell you about my experiences with deity devotions. When I first started, with approximately 1 million years ago, about like 20-ish years ago, I was really feeling called to Bridget, or Breed. She's a Celtic deity, an Irish deity, and she is a deity she's a hearth deity. She's the goddess of fire, forge, transformation. Her holiday, her festival is Imbolc in the beginning of February, and I felt like she was a good deity for me at the time. Now, I don't feel like I had a really good relationship with her, although I did have a candle to her. I did, honor her, but I felt like I was just honoring her. I did not feel like there was a back and forth relationship. Shortly after that, I had a calling to Hestia, who is another hearth goddess. She's a Greek hearth goddess. And I found myself in that devotional relationship. I found myself called to her because literally I was sitting in my car on a lunch break. I was about 19, I would think. No, probably like 20. I was probably about 20. I'm sitting in the park in my car eating lunch on my break, and I hear the word Hestia like whispered in my ear. And when I say Hestia was whispered in my ear, I don't mean like, oh, I heard it in my mind's eye. No, I felt like somebody was literally whispering in my ear. So when creepy things happen, I tend to pay attention. And I was like, what is a Hestia? So I did a little bit of research. I had been practicing for a while, but I was not very well versed in all the mythologies yet. So I did some research. Like, oh, that sounds familiar. Found her and honored her for a while. But I didn't really feel like this clicking with her. So I went a really long time without having a specific deity that I was devoted to. I still honored Hestia, I still honored Bridget, but it was like I was honoring them. I didn't have the reciprocal relationship. I didn't feel like I had that relationship until probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I don't know. Like, I'm 40. It all kind of melts together. But I was going through a really big spiritual disconnect. And I was, I could still, don't get me wrong, I could still do spell work, I could still raise energy. I just felt kind of disconnected from the divine. So I was doing all of these different things, trying to find a connection. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to meditate and see what happens. Sometimes we forget that we have these tools like meditation. I know I always go back to those four fundamental skills: meditation, observation, contemplation, visualization. Like, I know I always go back to those, but honestly, those are tools that we sometimes forget that we have. So I completely I meditated, but I never really thought, hey, let me meditate and see if I can't find that answer. Hoping you guys can hear me. Sorry. Okay. So I decided to meditate on just the question of trying to find a way to solve this spiritual disconnect. And I received some very interesting information. Now, did I have Aphrodite coming out from the ocean saying, hey, I choose you, Pikachu? No. But I got some interesting symbols, and I heard the ocean in my ear. And again, I didn't hear the ocean in my ear. I heard the ocean in my ear. That makes no sense. So when something makes no actual logical sense, that, again, is something that I pay a lot of attention to. So over the next few weeks, I did a lot of research, and I came to the conclusion that the goddess that has chosen me and that I will choose in return is Aphrodite Aurania. Aphrodite has a lot of different epithets. So that was kind of how I came to start this devotional path. My altar to her is like literally right here. Maybe I'll tip the camera so you can see it in a bit. But so that is just kind of how I came on to my personal devotional path. So let's talk a little bit about different ways to find your deity. One way is literally exactly what I just said. Maybe you're not going through a spiritual disconnect, but maybe you just, maybe you just sit in quiet contemplation meditation, focusing on the question, who is my goddess? Who is my goddess? And if you don't really get any answers after a while, maybe like, what can I do to find her? And just see what comes to you. Now you might get words, you might get symbols, you might get colors. The way that our minds kind of interpret all of that like input can be all kinds of different ways. So it could be colors, it could be a number, it could be a symbol, a star, or a specific kind of tree, or a flower, or a sound, like I said. It could be all kinds of different things. It could be a scent, it could be pretty much anything. So just allow yourself to be open. And if you do a meditation like this, I highly suggest that you have a journal ready. And if you don't journal, if you're like, I hate journaling, I don't like drawing between the lines, I always suggest like you don't have to like journal like in straight lines, and you can mind map. I don't know if you remember doing that. Like I think we learned that in elementary school, where you put like your main subject and you circle it and you put lines with other things. You can mind map instead of journal. You can art journal. You can sketch, like whatever kind of input, or I guess output that calls to you, do that. So that at least you have something to come back to. Because it's kind of like, sometimes when you meditate, it's almost sort of like dreaming, when you wake up and you're like, oh, I'll remember all of these things. And then you don't remember all of these things. So I always suggest that you have some sort of journal or something if you're meditating. And this sort of meditation, let me concentrate on a simple question and see what happens, see what messages I receive, and whether those messages are from the gods or from your spirit guides or from your allies or from the Akashic records, whatever, wherever you believe that is coming from, like those are very important, and make sure you kind of note them so that you can go back to them. Besides meditation, you can kind of look out for signs. And when I say signs, I have a blog post about this. Not everything is a sign. Again, if you're in some of these beginner witchcraft, witchy sort of groups on Facebook, people are like, I saw 2 crows today. What does that mean? It means you saw 2 crows today. I saw a baby bird. It's spring. Like, in my opinion, a sign is something that is unusual. So, so look out for signs, or just look out for things that your mind's eye is kind of drawn to. Okay. And again, it's always really good to kind of document this in some way. So whether that's your audio recorder, whether that's your journal, whatever that could possibly be, make sure you're just documenting that. If you don't really want to do a meditation, like just sit and meditate, you can also do an intentional ritual where you basically kind of do the same thing, but you can do it within a ritualistic standpoint where, like, you whatever kind of ritual that you do. Some people do a Wiccan style ritual with the circle casting and the quarter calling and deities, etc. Or it could just be you cast a circle, or whatever it is. You can call the fairies, the elements, the dragons, whatever kind of ritual, like, framework that you want to do. And then during the ritual, you do some sort of working or some sort of path working or some sort of meditation within that ritual. Some people feel like creating that ritual container kind of like makes that energy stronger, that reaching out energy stronger. So that is also something that you might want to try. And again, you want to make sure you are listening for sounds and sights and smells. You might get a visual or some sort of intuitive knowledge, like I know she has golden hair, or I know, that she is associated with the color red. Like, so it might just not be like, oh, color red, blah, blah, blah. Like, you might get this intuitive knowledge. Make sure you do your best to open yourself up and open your intuition up for that. And then you can take all of that information, whether you just did the meditation or you did the ritual or you did you noted down signs. Then it's time to do some research. Okay, so then it's time to do some research. Now, what I want to caution you from doing, and I'm not saying this is bad, I'm not saying don't do this, but I was just part of a goddess challenge in another group. It was amazing. It's a really awesome group. I know the name, but I don't want to get it wrong. I'm too afraid to get it wrong. So I'll make sure that I post it. I'll post it with the actual right name, because I'm in several very similar name groups and I don't want to F it up. But in this awesome group, this woman led everybody through a really great exercise. And then many people went online, and as part of their research, they kind of Googled, like, okay, she's in my meditation, in my guided meditation. Like, I think she posted like a guided meditation, like you meet your goddess or whatever. And like, oh, she had brown hair, she had this, she had that. And, a lot of people just went to Google Images and typed in brown hair goddess, blah, 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 looked at the Google Images, said, oh, that looks like her in my meditation. And now she is, I obviously follow Ishtar or whatever. And while that is good, that is definitely a cool way to kind of do some research. I think I would just caution you, if that's something that you're thinking about doing with your research, I would just caution you, because a lot of that art isn't like divinely inspired art. So unless you know the artist and you're like, oh, I trust this artist, I know she's like a goddess woman, I know, that it was divine sacred art that came out of her, I would just, and even if you do find something that kind of mimics what you saw in your meditation, I would still encourage you to actually do real research. Okay. And by real research, I mean, look into the actual myths, look into stories of the goddess. Don't just, don't just like, oh, hey, this person has a website and she says that Aphrodite has brown hair and green eyes, and that's what I saw in my meditation, so obviously I follow Aphrodite. There's a really, really, really important skill in the witchcraft universe on the witchcraft path. It's called discernment. And discernment is a skill learned with experience, and it allows you to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. Like, it's kind of like your bullshitometer. So don't just believe every single thing on every single website. And I'm not saying that I think you will, but I know we have a lot of brand new people in here. So I do want to put that out there. Anybody can have a website. However, there are some really awesome, really scholarly, good mythological websites. So when you're doing your research, and I'm going to talk about in a second about creating a practice. So it's not just only about research, but I do encourage you to do the research and kind of see what symbols related to the goddess that you were interested in over the years. Not just like today, Ashley Smith decided that plumeria is one of Ishtar's flowers, and now Ishtar has a flower. She made a picture of Ishtar with a flower in it, and now you had a plumeria flower in your meditation, and now you're like, I need to honor Ishtar. So just be really careful about research and be smart about your research, because I see, and research to me is super important. It might not be as important to you. Obviously go with your gut, go with your intuition, but also, it's always good to kind of back it up with research. And even if you don't agree with the research, even if your experience is different, then at least you will know what the actual research is. Like, okay, well, I see so-and-so with red hair, even though I know the old scholars wrote about her with blonde hair. Like, I understand that, but this is my experience. Okay. So I'm going to kind of use that as a segue to talk about creating your devotional practice. So there are two ways. Okay, there are lots of ways that you can start creating your devotional practice. Now it can be as easy as lighting a candle, right? Like lighting a candle, maybe saying a prayer. But before you light that candle and say that prayer, I have two suggestions for you. Number one, I just talked about research. I'm going to talk about it again because I think research is really important. Once you decide, okay, so you are not going to start your devotional practice until you have decided which goddess you want to honor, right? Before you start your actual devotional practice, you might want to have some conversations. You might want to put some information out there during your meditation. Try to connect with her in different ways to make sure like you really are feeling like strongly about her and you feel like she feels strongly about you. When you are creating your devotional practice, there are two ways kind of to get started. Number one, and I suggest use both of these ways. Okay. I don't feel like you should use one or the other. I think you should use both of these ways. Number one is research. I just talked about that. There are a lot of different, there are books, there are great books. And I'm not saying you have to go like read scholarly theses, but you can buy some really, really good books. I suggest that you buy some books that reference ancient, I don't have my book that I want to show you. I suggest that you buy some or read some or go to the library and, read some poetry, ancient poetry, read some, scholarly articles about the goddess that you're interested in. And I also suggest that you look into what some modern priestesses are doing or, are working with, are doing. I'm sorry, that's not even a sentence. I suggest that you look into what modern people are saying about the goddess and not just what the ancient stuff is. And I believe in research. I am just a research girl. I love learning about research, but also, and I'm also one of the people who are like, I have to do everything for myself. I have to write every ritual for myself. But the older I'm getting, the longer I'm in this craft, on this craft path, I'm realizing that I don't have to do every single thing myself. So it's pretty awesome. So look into some research, some ancient stuff, research some newer stuff, and that is a good jumping off point. Now, the second suggestion for you, and I really feel this is kind of important for any sort of devotional path, is to get your own experiences that are separate from the research, that's separate from what other people are doing, what other people believe. And again, I'm going to come back to meditation and journaling, but there is something called UPG. If you don't know anything about UPG, I have a little video about it on my YouTube channel. UPG is unsubstantiated personal gnosis. And what this basically is your personal experiences. That's it. It sounds fancy, but it's basically your own personal experiences. Now, your UPG, your personal experiences, is not going to be the same as Jennifer's personal experiences and so-and-so's personal experiences. I do see some people who are like, well, Hecate likes vinegar. And somebody goes, no, she doesn't. Hecate likes honey cakes. No, she doesn't. Hecate likes olive oil as an offering. Yeah, so these are all people's own personal experiences. Does it mean that anybody's wrong? No. Because it's their own personal experience. So your personal experience with your goddess is going to be different than other people's personal experience with that goddess, because their relationship with her is going to be different than your relationship with her. So keep that in mind. Again, we were talking about meditation. You can go into meditation. You know, if you're trying to figure out what to offer her, number one, look at your research. What was she offered in ancient times? So I'm going to go back to Aphrodite because she's my girl. You know, honey cakes, incense. You know, she had, you know, one of the, I guess, advantages to honoring like a Greek deity is you've got a lot to pull from. You know, it's easy to do some research and figure out how she was honored in different time in the ancient times. Excuse me. But you know, that's honey cakes, some olive oil, incense especially. Her temples always had tons of incense. So you know, you can pull that information from your research. There are also some, especially when we get to like more, I mean, all of this, most of this is like the like indigenous, you know, ancient sort of religions, right? But many of the indigenous Native American and indigenous like Canadian and indigenous, other indigenous like cultures and like Celtic cultures were tribal, but like they didn't really write a lot of things down. It was a lot of oral history. Like they passed their stories person to person to person. So there aren't a lot of like tomes. Like you can't like read Homer to kind of get an idea of what people thought back then. So like, what are you going to do? And that's when meditation comes into play. And in meditation, you can do two things. You can do a visualization where you meet your goddess and you talk to her, or you can do a silent meditation where you open yourself up with that question, like, you know, what can I do? What can I offer to you? What can I offer to you? And again, you can ask other people what they offer to that goddess if that's not really an option for you. But you know, if research really isn't an option, you know, I know a lot of people don't like to read books. That seems to be a pretty new phenomenon to me as a teacher. Like to see how many people are like, I don't read. I don't like to read books. So like, how am I going to learn? How am I going to learn Wicca? How am I going to learn witchcraft? I mean, but I do feel like, number one, there's Audible now. You can listen. But I come back to research, but if that's not possible, ask other people, you know, experience your experiences. Once you kind of have an idea of kind of what you want to do for an offering, that's perfect. So step one, it's always good to find an offering for your goddess. And, you know, you can just give her an offering. That can just be part of your devotional practice. And your offering doesn't have to be something physical. Your offering can be an act of service. Your offering could be you know, you read poetry in her name, you write poetry in her name, you paint a picture of her. Like your offerings can be all kinds of different things. You can do it whenever you like. We talk a lot in here about real life and witchcraft and making it actually work with each other, right? So so that we aren't kind of feeling guilty for not doing the things. Like there's a lot of imposter syndrome. I think I have a video on imposter syndrome on my channel. So check out my YouTube channel if you feel that imposter syndrome is happening. But honestly, like, you know, do what you can when you can. Make time for your goddess. You know, don't ignore her. And if you do ignore her for a while, if life gets in the way, that's fine. Clean your altar, do some offerings. Don't let the break in momentum of your rituals kind of like throw you off forever. Just do something. That's it. Just do something. What are you going to do? Do something. light a candle, light some incense, say a prayer, tell her you love her, whatever, just do something. Okay. So that is one way to just kind of start your practice. I also suggest, so we're going to probably, I think in September, I'm probably going to do a 2-week, 14-day goddess challenge. I want to do a week challenge, but I think I've got too much to, like, I want to kind of spread it out and make it really doable. So I think it's going to be a 2-week challenge I'm going to do in September. I have a book coming out. It's more of a devotional journal to help you connect with your goddess based on my actual journal that I created to help me in my devotional practices. So you can always start a journal with your research, with your vacations, with your offerings, with your research on her festivals. And that's another thing. You can research her festivals. You can do all kinds of things, right, to honor her. And sometimes even just doing that work, doing that research on her festival, that is awesome enough, right? That is work. Anything that you are doing to help honor her is a devotional act. So you can create a practice where you decide what day you want to honor her once a week. Like if, again, Aphrodite, like Friday is kind of associated with Venus. You know, Venus is Aphrodite's Roman counterpart. So in a perfect world, maybe I would just do my main devotional ritual on Fridays. You can go ahead and do that. You can create a day, one day a week. You can create and structure your devotional practice however you like. But I implore you to not set yourself up for failure. Okay. Because I've seen too many people stress themselves out trying to create a devotional practice and it fall apart because it's too hard, because they want to do these giant, huge rituals like once a day or, once a week. And they've got kids and dogs and family. You're taking care of people, you're cooking dinner, you're going to work, you have to work overtime and all the things, that you feel terrible. And that is the last thing that I want anybody to feel. That's the last thing that Goddess wants you to feel. She doesn't want you to feel like shit. So just when you're thinking about a practice, think about creating a sort of sustainable practice and what that means. And that could be, your practice, again, could just be lighting a candle. It can be doing an offering. It can be reading poetry aloud to her. It can be creating an altar to her, a shrine to her. It can be cleaning that shrine because it needs to be clean. We all kind of like set up altars, and a lot of us are just like, set it and forget it. But you know what? Dust happens, right? So it needs to be cleaned, and that is also an act of service. So I'm going to go way more into detail and help you create a freaking awesome devotional practice when we do our Deity Devotion Challenge. But for now, those are just a couple of ways that you can do that. So that is it. I'm going to let you guys go. It is a little bit over half an hour, and I'm trying to keep this at less than half an hour. Went over. But that's it. Again, if you have any questions, you can always feel free comment if you like. You can tag me so I make sure that I see it, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Let me show you. I don't know if you can see it because it's kind of dark in here right now, but there's my little Aphrodite altar right there. My husband has my camera corded pretty quick, pretty down. Okay, perfect. So if you have any questions, I would love to hear them. Any suggestions, even as you're going, I would love to hear if you have a deity that you honor. Please post her in the comments. I'm always really interested in how other people practice. It's fascinating to me. And we're here to help one another. We're here to support one another. So maybe you can find somebody else who is a devotee of the same deity that you are interested in. And we'll do more of that again in the September challenge that will be coming up. But other than that, I will let you guys go. I will see you soon. I think it's next week. We don't have a training, but the week after that, I think we're going back to training. So a couple more. But I am going to be popping on live with a couple little tiny tidbit tip sort of lives So keep an eye out for that. I will see you guys there. Bye.